Fam, let's go right into the second section because I think the last section, because I think you hit it nice when you're talking about why you think this is a psyop. We just explained what was going on with the breaking news, like literally, fam, breaking news. They've arrested these migrants in Phoenix. They got 3 of them off a bus. They're looking for the rest of them. Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's in people's mind that they hate immigrants more than than anybody else? They're people, right? They're human beings. And I get it when people are like, well, I understand. We just don't have the resources and whatnot. But yeah, you're still not recognizing the fact of why they're here in the first place. Why do we have so many bases? We have 100 bases in Latin America. They're there for a reason. It's about keeping those countries destabilized and resource extraction. And fam is not lying. When we've gone down and witnessed this, we've gone and met Manuel Zelaya, who was cooed and taken out of his country at the behest of the United States, who said, get rid of this guy. He's doing too much for their country. They're getting too stable. They want to keep Honduras destabilized. That's it.
So to the point of this whole thing, right? I do have to destroy this narrative again that they're coming in to vote, that illegals are just being allowed by the Democratic Party to come in to vote. That's literally next to impossible. First of all, voter fraud is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Election fraud is a whole other thing, but voter fraud is almost non-existent. Why? Because people don't just go and vote twice. It's a felony. It's very hard to do. Why would you? When this is done, it is done by companies, by corporate entities, that sort of thing. And that's election fraud. People still cannot, on the right, they fail to differentiate between voter fraud and election fraud, 2 separate things. And Pasta and I know this very well. So when you say, these illegals are coming in to vote, who's gonna do that? How is the Democratic Party going to create social security numbers and identity figures for all of these people and then somehow get them registered to vote without being citizens? It is a felony. They don't need that. They don't need to do that to manipulate elections.
I think you also, let's bring this tweet up because I think you also hit some other interesting points in here. They're very important to understand. When these people come over here, they don't necessarily vote Democrat. They're not down with a lot of the cultural ways the Democratic Party is, inclined to about, pro-abortion, LGBT community. These people are very, very religious. A lot of these people who come over, and they're just not going to just blindly vote for Democrats anymore. They become the Rubios and the Cruzes of the freaking United States, and that's just the obvious right now, fam. So please read this tweet here that you had. I think this was great. I shared it last night. First of all, let's go to Kim.com and see what Kim.com said first, so we can understand what who and what Fiorella was responding to real quick. If you can click on that. Okay, so go ahead. I'm calling it, fam. The Democrats just lost the next election. They shot themselves in the foot with that Senate bill. It shows their intent to welcome more illegals and turn them into voters to the detriment of all Americans. Many who will usually vote Dems will feel utterly betrayed, fam.
First of all, Kim is from New Zealand, so he really doesn't have a lot of knowledge on America in the United States and what constitutes definitely not elections, because that's not how it works. Now, I want to just address this comment. Nobody's blaming migrants. People are just sick of being neglected, right? People are just sick of being neglected. Where is it?
Go to Fam's tweet.
No, nobody's blaming migrants. People are just sick of being neglected while migrants get a prepaid fucking credit cards and housing. I haven't seen still evidence of them getting housing. Maybe a prepaid credit card. I don't know. Maybe there's a program.
They're talking about the temporary status when they get put up in hotels and all that, but it's once again, it's temporary. It's not full time. Eventually, most of these immigrants have a place to go. They disappear and they're gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like, and people try to paint it like they get handed keys to a Rolls Royce and all these other things when they get, stabilizing.
Let me say this. Let me say this. The reality is that if you're very poor in this country, very poor, you receive help. Very poor, I mean, making less than $20,000, maybe 10. I think it's under $10,000 to get food stamps, to get some sort of aid. If you have a disability, there is some help, especially in states like California, right? If you're very, very poor, you qualify for certain things that others in the middle class, or what we call the middle class, wouldn't qualify for. So that is a problem with the system where you have to be dirt poor to get any sort of help. And if you're middle class, you're screwed. And this is something that I've experienced as well, because, for example, when I was trying to go to school, there couldn't be any help because my family had too much money to have help for me and my siblings for school. But it was so expensive to pay for college tuition that I had to rely on a scholarship, because college tuition in the United States is like $30,000 to $50,000 a year. Okay. So if you don't get a scholarship, you're going to be in a huge amount of debt. And who literally gets the most affected is the people who are middle class, so to speak, who are working people, but they're not poor, but they're not very rich either. And so there's a large chunk of the American public that gets angry and says, well, what the hell? How come these people are getting, COVID relief and they're barely working, and why are they getting help and we're not getting help, and we have to pay more and we contribute more to the economy? I get it. I totally get it. At the same time, why are you so angry for the chunk of change that these people are getting, and not angry at the people stealing your American jobs and exporting them to Southeast Asia and paying slave wages to these people so they don't have to pay you what you deserve? You are getting angry at the wrong people. You're getting angry at the symptom, and you're not getting angry at the actual problem, the people causing this problem, who want you to get angry at those people that you think have it so good, or who are lazy, or whatever preconceived stereotypes you might have. And the reason I get angry at the elite is because they're the ones running the show, and they're the ones with the most money, and they sit back and they laugh. So I'm going to go ahead and read the tweet, and now you'll understand what I'm saying, because this is all part of it.
Too, fam, real quick too, as well, just to address that person who said those things. And the person followed up 4737 Carlin says, I'm not saying they shouldn't get it. I'm saying they get it. Why shouldn't born citizens do? There are a lot of born citizens that get a lot of help, but then they just end up back in the same place they started from, right? They're, I'm saying the immigrants, a lot of the immigrants, they're just willing to do this type of work that a lot of American born citizens aren't willing to do. So eventually they take that help, get on their feet, and then go where they got to go. And then we'll end up picking fruit, cleaning pools, babysitting kids that, I'm saying, and it's all about what we talked about before. Who's benefiting the most off the suffering of people? And then a lot of people point to the cartels and the way they're exploiting people, they said, on the border. Well, who's exploiting these people more? The ruling class here, the corporations who benefit off that cheap-ass labor, or the cartels themselves? I would say it's an easy answer. And that's the corporations and the people who are causing this problem to begin with. You know what I'm saying? That's why I believe when you say it as a psyop, you're very much on the nose, because this is made to divide the people and keep them fighting at each other. And once again, shouldn't we be upset at why they're coming here in the first place? Go down to Latin America and you will see it for yourself. When we were driving, right, along in Honduras, not too far, when we were coming from the northern part of the country to Tegucigalpa, we would pass a base that had 1,500 American troops in it. 1,500 American troops, a little town.
What are you doing in Honduras?
The capital of fucking Honduras. Why is it there? Go ahead, fam.
Exactly. So I said the border issue is a psyop, and this is what I mean by psyop, a psychological operation, right? Democrats suck, and we know that Democrats suck. I'm not defending the Democrats here by any means, and their border policies are hurting the economy, but the border policies are not much different than what we've had in the past, okay? We talked about a fence. That was Barack Obama, and then it was Donald Trump, and then it was Joe Biden, and Joe Biden said it before Barack Obama. So what we're talking about here is the same type of border policy with a few tweaks here and there that are made for fundraising off this issue and getting both sides of the fence riled up, okay? And so illegals don't vote. We've said this I don't know how many times. When you're an illegal, or so-called illegal undocumented person, you literally want to hide in the shadows. They have like 3 jobs at least. All they care about is sending money home. They live with like 5 or 6 people in an apartment because they're trying to save money and send it back home. They barely sleep. We know because we've worked in the restaurant business. We've also lived in Los Angeles, and I've lived in Florida, where there's a lot of immigrants. And so you understand these people are here to work in majority. Do people come that are criminals and thugs and all of that? Of course, people are going to come in. There are bad people everywhere. But the majority of people, I have yet to see that many homeless people that are of immigrant descent, because immigrants usually have a family member here that they can stay with. They usually refuse to end up in the streets. They'll do whatever work that they possibly can, work that nobody wants to do. And again, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to pay them less, that's a problem with our structure. That is not a problem for to get mad at people who are just looking for a job, right? Because the biggest issue is also that we don't have fair elections here, whether or not migrants are coming in. They're already, guys, I mean, we're on YouTube, right? These elections are already not what they say they are, right? And so you don't need China, you don't need Russia, you don't need Venezuela, you don't need the ghost of Hugo Chavez to influence our elections. Because again, this is how I feel. This is why I'm not going to vote. And I think electoral politics is done because our elections just aren't representative. How do we have people in power that nobody likes? Because we don't have fair elections. So, okay. So the point is, and you can scroll up, Jamie, that the 1% and the corporations on both sides of the aisle, okay, exported all of our jobs overseas. Why? Because they want to pay them low wages instead of paying you the wages you deserve. This is what happened. This is what broke down. This is why Michigan and areas in West Virginia, all of these factories that used to employ all these people, they completely went out of business. And all of that was exported overseas because who can make more money? The people in charge of these major corporations, these major companies, they don't want to pay you. Instead, they want to pay other people. That is a problem with them. That's not a problem with people coming here. And so they'll pay them less and they won't pay you anything. And so people here who benefit of immigrants coming in, right? Oh, I can hire a gardener, I can hire a maid, I can hire anybody and pay them less than I would pay an American citizen. And I can save some money. There you go. Are those people also to blame? Not really, to a degree, but that's also allowed because therefore you get more cheap labor from everybody. So everybody wants cheap labor. So people don't want to pay people what they deserve. And so that's not necessarily the fault of the people who are looking for any work. Now, this is something Pasta has talked about many times. We also fund and fuel the drug war via the biggest cartel, which is the DEA. Okay. And when you talk about the cartels bringing in drugs, the drugs are mostly brought by your local doctors, your physicians, Big Pharma. Big Pharma has made complete addicts of the majority of Americans, not just to fentanyl, but to opioids, to barbiturates. People on any sector, both the poor and the wealthy, are affected by this. People, celebrities, you've noticed, have been dying of fentanyl overdose. Okay, just as much as the poor kids in working class neighborhoods have also died of fentanyl overdose. This drug epidemic does not discriminate on status of wealth. So while immigration does affect our economics, it's not the fault of these immigrants. It's not the fault of even your neighbor, the liberal, or the Trump supporter. It's literally the fault of those in power who are trying to do this. And by the way, they want us to be mad at each other. You can scroll up. They want us to go to war with each other. And what happens every time we talk about a civil war or people going after each other? It's going to basically lead to a surveillance state where they can expand on this fascistic takeover. And that's exactly, if you get a civil war, I guarantee you're not going to get the whole gung-ho Texas, oh yeah, we're going to secede and it's going to be great. You're going to get a crackdown from the national security state apparatus who's going to go after all of your liberties and rights. You're never going to get them back. And why? Because you're going to be fighting some poor bastard for a scrap while these people are actually running the show and laughing. So that's the reality. And all we have to do is realize that and really push all of this aside and realize that you're being played. You're being played and you've been played this whole time against your neighbors, against an immigrant, against whoever, because the immigrants are coming here directly from the countries that we've sanctioned, blockaded, and continue to steal from, whether it's natural resources, whether it's oil, gold, lithium, whatever it is.
Bananas.
Bananas, whatever it is. And we're still doing it. We're doing it right now in the Middle East. We've literally done this for so long. People don't even realize we're still doing it. We're doing it right now in Peru. We're in Southcom is all over Latin America. And this is why it's so important to understand how foreign policy is our domestic policy, because the domestic issues of the border are directly related to our foreign policy.
Absolutely. And all that oil we're steering from Syria, right? That we're stealing, literally just fucking hauling it out of the country. Where does the majority of that oil end up? Israel. Right? We can't be America first if you're going to be Israeli.
Israelis have no problem, by the way. Israelis have no problem coming to the United States legally, by the way. They have zero problem. They can come here and go as they please. Why aren't you mad about that? Why is that allowed? You know, there's these double standards. And again, these double standards exist for a reason. They exist for a reason. And you have to be mad. You have to go after the people in power. You shouldn't go after people who are powerless, just as powerless as you are, and are getting played and turning against each other. And they win. Every time we turn against each other, they win. And I just, if we realize that, guys, we can literally change things and stop this cycle of endless war that's bringing in all of these problems that everybody's complaining about. You want America first? Stop invading other countries.
Exactly.
Literally. And focus on American issues, domestic policy. That would be America first.
Yeah. And Carlin and Chris, stop fighting nasty in the chat. Fight nicely, okay? We're having a discussion here. We're not doing this to pit people against each other. We're doing this so we can have conversations. And if you're very concerned about the migration that's coming into this country and you think it's affecting the wages and the truth and the money and the salaries and all this other things, fine. But understand the causation. Where is it coming from? Have an honest conversation about that. The Monroe Doctrine is alive and well. And quite frankly, so many of these people wouldn't be here if we weren't there with our bases and our force and sticking up for corporations so they can extract those resources for pennies on the dollar. It's just like what's going on in the Congo, what you see to this day, you know. And that's why it was great. Who was it that threw France out, fam? Was it Niger? Who said, "Get the hell out of here! You've been extracting our."
It was a heap of them. It was Mali.
Like you're extracting our cobalt and our lithium and all our other minerals for pennies on the dollars. Get out of here. You're not going to do it no more. But that's what it's about. Keeping these countries as destabilized as possible, so that therefore they can get these resources for pennies on the dollars. And they come and they tax us over here in the United States to obtain those resources because they said they had to move them over here. It's like they get on both ends. It's like the ruling class. They get to blow up a country on the front end, right? And get all that money funneled into the military-industrial complex. And then they get to rebuild it on the back end, you know, with the fascistic corporations going in there and doing so, getting governmental contracts from the government that we put into play. And it seems like we have to have a say about every single government out there, that we have to dictate who they pick and when they pick them. You know what I'm saying? Because if they get too free, and you were talking about Nicaragua, fam, you made an awesome tweet about Nicaragua, but that's the thing, you know, when they get to a certain level, they wanted to remove Daniel Ortega, and they've demonized them. That's why when we went over there at your behest, guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. It really means a lot for citizen journalism. When we went over there, we were able to show those elections and how legit they were, right? That's powerful, because the first thing our government does and the ruling class apparatus, the military industrial complex does with the mainstream media, is kind of bag or rag or try to decredit the elections they have and say they're awful and they're not good. You know what I'm saying? And if we were able to show that, look, they have more of a democratic representation than we do over here in the United States, that's powerful. And that's the power you guys have by liking, sharing, and donating a few bucks here and there. You know what I'm saying? We can show you so much because you guys put us in a position to do so. Fiorella going to the Donbass, me going to Hawaii. These are powerful things because you're not going to get the truth out there from the mainstream media. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear and what the ruling class wants you to hear. And they put people in positions. They don't have journalists there. They have, you know, stenographers for the ruling class.
Yep.